flipped the car. I was pronounced dead at the scene. I woke up and I was facing 25 to life.
Holy shit. Today I've got in studio Mr. Ryan Zofay, the founder of We Level Up, which is treatment facilities, but also becoming a brand that helps inspire people to find their greatest selves. Ryan is also a speaker, a Florida native, an author, and like I like to say, just an all-around good dude. So we're gonna dive into his story today.
Age 11 is when I started using drugs, and then it just rapidly progressed to whatever I could get my hands on. My dad pretty much wrote me off. Like, don't ever talk to me again. You're gonna spend the rest of your life in prison. I already lost a daughter. Now I just lost my son. I had to be a monster at certain times in my life just to get through. And what I found doing the work is falling in love with that monster. If you're at a place in life when you feel like you want more and you feel like you're not living up to your fullest potential, I'd love the opportunity to support and help you.
Well, welcome to the show, my brother.
How you doing, my man? Thank you so much, bro.
Great, man. You see the smile, bro. You see the smile. You're a Florida guy, born and raised.
Second generation.
Okay. What part of Florida?
So Palm Beach County, like Lake Worth, Lantana area. It's funny, my dad grew up on a farm out west in Palm Beach County when there was farmland back in the day. So it's interesting because the earlier part of my life, I was out in the woods a lot and I was in the farms a lot. And it's kind of interesting to think about it because like you don't think of like farms in Palm Beach County.
No.
But yeah,
that
cool.
explains the camo and the hat that he loves to wear all the time. He's a good old boy.
I would say so. Yeah. It's funny, man. Yeah, my uncle was a farmer. My grandfather was a farmer. So it's pretty interesting when I think about it. So growing up in the backwoods was definitely normal for me.
You get, listen, I followed you on social, before we even met, just because I had that interaction. You didn't know who I was. I think we spoke briefly at one of the events, and I was just moved by it. It was an intervention Tony did with you regarding your mom, who you lost early in life, and we'll dive into that. But then it was also around, finding someone to love.
Yeah.
And it was really emotional. I'm pretty sure now you may remember that interaction. Because I think Tony asked you directly, what would she want for you? And you came to that realization that she would want you to be happy with another woman.
Yeah.
And, kind of solve some of the issues that we all suffer with when we
Sure.
come from broken homes or trauma. So, you live a great life now, but that wasn't always the case, brother.
No.
Bring us back to when you were a kid and, the memories weren't necessarily so good about, doing farm work or things like that.
Yeah.
I know you struggled a lot and your mom did as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think up until maybe 2021, 2022 is really when I broke through and understood like what Tony was teaching me. Yes, the idea of having a partner and building a family together sounded good, but energetically, there was just big gap between having it and like visualizing it. And that gap that I needed to fill was falling in love with myself. I was constantly seeking outside validation to fill this internal hole. And until I was able to be alone long enough to really fall in love with all parts of Ryan, I don't think a relationship would have ever lasted, or it never did last, so to speak.
Right.
And so it's interesting because from today's perspective, I can say, I'm so grateful I went through all of the hardships I did with my family because it drove me to become the man that I am today. But going through that definitely did not feel good. And most people, when they're going through it, they don't enjoy it. It doesn't feel good, and it feels like it's never going to end. And sometimes there's nights when I'm like in my bed, like crying in the fetal position, like, when is this shit ever going to stop? And then all of a sudden, one day, you just have like a moment where you're like, whoa, it all makes sense.
What was that moment for you? And you talk about falling in love with yourself. And I always say, you can't love anybody if you don't love yourself, or at least not healthily.
Sure.
So what does that process look like? Because you've got all the information, but it's not like implementing a business strategy, right? It's much deeper than that.
Yeah.
I mean, was it therapy? What was it that allowed you to break through finally?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been sober for 24 years, so actively working a 12-step program over those 24 years, heavily involved with therapy and personal development, which is where we met in Tony Robbins. I think the first step that has to happen with falling in love with yourself is self-acceptance and really establishing boundaries and values to live by. And so when I entered a 12-step program, that's what 12 steps is all about, is spiritual principles to live by.
Right.
And so as I started to practice and apply them in my life, I started to see my life get better. But when it came to relationships, that felt like it just would never get better. And until I went in and did some like deeper trauma work around all the extreme violence and heartbreaks that I went through growing up, it felt like I would have never been able to heal that stuff. Growing up, we have caretakers that are responsible to teach us and guide us and parent us. And if they don't have the capacity to do so, we start to develop these unmet needs. And then we get older and we're looking for those unmet needs in all the wrong places. And until I started to meet those unmet needs and give myself that love and that space and that time and accepting myself, it's never going to get to a place where you can love yourself. Right. And so self-acceptance is first. Then it's like really starting to love yourself and love all parts of yourself, because, throughout life, as we get older, we start to develop these identities and these characters to help us get through those times, those difficult times. And sometimes we get these ideas that we want to get rid of that part of us, or we hate that part of us. And it's actually the opposite. It's really like falling in love with that version of us because it did its job. It protected us through that time. So I had to be a monster at certain times of my life just to get through. Right. And what I found doing the work is falling in love with that monster. Although he did things I didn't appreciate and I wouldn't want to ever do again, but I can honestly say, like, thank you, because it got me through that difficult time.
Right. And you were in survival mode for so long. You mentioned your childhood, and I want to dig into that, but not before saying that I recently learned, in the last couple of years of doing the work, that most of us are programmed between the ages of 0 and 7.
Yeah.
And we're running that program unbeknownst to us.
Yeah.
So what was your upbringing like? And tell us about a lot of that chaos, which I'm familiar with, but yeah. I'm sure there's stories I have no idea about. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the first real traumatic event was my sister passing away. And it just absolutely destroyed my family. My mom didn't know how to handle it. My dad sure as hell didn't know how to handle it. And they divorced, and my mom started to date this other man who was a drug addict and encouraged my mom to start using drugs. And he was a very violent man. It got so bad with her relationship that he attempted to take her life, and he stabbed her 13 times. She lived, and I just remembered like going to her house after, and like she had all these pictures because I guess they needed evidence of what he did. And as crazy as it sounds, I think he only did like 6 months in jail. And then the craziest part about it is she ended up getting back in that relationship with him, which was nuts, because what type of messaging am I picking up with that? Like, you can be abused and that's okay, and then get back in this relationship. So talk about self-acceptance and boundaries. I didn't have any of that because the person who taught me didn't have boundaries either. And then they got into another big fight after getting back together, and he attempted to take her life again and shot her in the neck with a gun. She survived that. Don't know how she did it. And yeah, man, it's pretty wild. So like that was like the level of trauma. And
how old were you?
So it was 9 when she got shot. So probably like 8, between the age of 8 and 10. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah, man. It's pretty wild, dude. It's funny. So Nick's at my house. Nick Santanastassos?
Yeah.
Nick. So he's at my house. He just came here because, what's going on in Dubai. And we were just sitting here, and, I just was just experiencing so much gratitude. And I was like, man, it's just so crazy, bro. Like, looking back on my life, like how much work I've had to put in, just to have like a level of sanity,
That I didn't know that about you. You mentioned the stabbing, and then I didn't realize like she got back and shot her. At that point, did she decide that was enough? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I guess
it's crazy how we can laugh about it. God,
Jesus Christ.
But somebody's going through this right now. And if you're hearing this and you're seeing this, it's not normal, but you too.
Bro, it used to have so much.
Overcome it at some point.
There was definitely times when it would have so much like emotional weight on it when I would share the story, and I've done so much work around this. And the truth is, bro, is my mom's just a badass. You know, like she was like the backbone in me. You know, like my dad would like to think he was, but what she's been through and the level of abuse and trauma and just like get up and keep going, it's crazy. Um, yeah, so that was it, and she still struggled with addiction though. She had a hard time staying sober, but I think that time he ended up going to jail for like maybe like 18 months or maybe close to 2 years.
What the fuck is with Florida, bro?
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah. Back then, yeah, I mean, his family was very wealthy, and I guess there was it was I guess it was only my mom and him that were there, and she really couldn't prove what happened, so it was like his word against hers.
Holy shit!
And so it was like attempted manslaughter. I think the charges got dropped too because she couldn't prove that it happened. I mean, he claimed that, you know, they were fighting over the gun went off, you know, so it was, yeah.
Wow. And it doesn't necessarily get better for her or for you after this. I mean,
No.
that's a level of violence that would shock anybody into submission. But she continues with the drugs, and you continue having to see this, you know, through your young teenage years as well.
Well, that's when I started. So that was age 11 is when I started using drugs, and I'm sure it had everything to do with going through that.
What was your first drug?
I smoked weed. I was smoking weed for the first time, and then it just rapidly progressed to whatever I can get my hands on. And then it was like a daily habit, and that lasted between 11 to 16. But I was in and out of juvie for 2 years during that time. So whenever I was in juvie, I wasn't using.
Right.
But when I would get out, I would use. So really, I didn't use that often. Like in terms of like timeline, like from 11 to 16, I was away for 2 years. So 3 years of my life I used. But I feel like how much I used during those 3 years is probably equivalent to a lifetime.
Probably your ceiling for getting high at that point.
Yeah.
And everything you've seen and the trauma you were holding on to.
Yeah.
And then that comes to a head when I believe you were 17, yeah?
Yeah, so 16, October 8th, 2001, I was in a high-speed chase. The cops were chasing me. I violated probation. At this point, I had like 21 felonies. And the judge is like, if you come back, we're going to adjudicate you as an adult, and we're going to max your time out in state prison. And so I was like, I'm not going back to jail. And so we were running thinking we were going to get away. And we flipped the car. I was pronounced dead at the scene. They trauma hawked me to the Delray Beach Hospital. And I woke up and I was facing 25 to life.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How did that end up? Obviously, to get the 25 to life.
You know, it's crazy, bro. I remember like it was yesterday. I was in detention, the detention center, and the pastor was like, she came up to me randomly and she was like, "Do you believe?" And I didn't really know what she was talking about. And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Do you believe that God has a plan for you?" And I was like, I don't really know what this has anything to do with what I'm doing here. And she's like, "Young man, you need to start believing, and at least believe that I believe, because God has a plan for you." And for whatever reason, that was like an interesting moment for me. And I remember going back to my dorm and sitting in my dorm, and the guard came over. He said, "Ryan, you have a visitor." And I was like, "A visitor?" You know, I just spoke to my dad on the phone. My dad pretty much like wrote me off. Like, "Don't ever talk to me again. You're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. I already lost a daughter. Now I just lost my son." And I was like, who could it be? And I was like, maybe my probation officer, because me and my probation officer were tight. And I was like, could it be my mom? I was like, I haven't seen my mom in 2-3 years at this point. And I was like, just racking my brain, like, who could it be? And I remember walking down the hall, just like overwhelmed with emotions, like, what the hell is going on? Like, something wasn't sitting right. And I remember walking in to the cafeteria and I saw my mom, and I started to tear up, and I was like, what the hell? And my mom looked gorgeous. You know, my mom's a very attractive woman, and I never really saw her that way because she was always strung out on drugs. And I was just like, what? And I remember sitting down and she was crying, and she just kept saying how sorry she was. And she's like, "I'm so sorry I got you in here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And I was just like, I didn't know what to say. And I was just crying. And she was like, "I'm going to get you out of here." And I was like, "Mom, I'm done. Like, the judge said I'm done. You heard him say that. I'm done." She's like, "It doesn't matter. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you out of here. I got you in here, and I'm going to get you out." And that was like the first time in my life that I truly felt supported. Like, it was like the first time I was like, wait, like, she does love me. Like, wait, there is maybe a chance. And I started to gain a ton of hope. And she gave me a 12-step big book, Alcoholics Anonymous big book. And she's like, read the first 164 pages and pray every night. And she's like, "I'm going to get you out of here." And I did. I got out. Yeah, man.
Holy shit. Now, your mom is sober for how long at this point?
So at this point, I think she had like 12 months, right around a year. So she just got sober. And I think like this was like her living amends, because a lot of the 12 steps is about making amends.
Right.
And so I think this was like her opportunity to, now to date, I can say that's the greatest gift that was ever given to me, is her introducing sobriety to me and then supporting me in those earlier years. She only made it 5 years, then she relapsed. And so then she really just struggled for the rest of her life. However, she introduced the program to me, which is the foundation of everything that I've built on.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know that you'd remember this. When I met you at the Tony event, before we knew each other, it was just, I saw the interaction, felt called to like say something. I was like, yeah, I was just sober for like 7 months at that point. And my thing with AA, right? So I went into detox. It was for drinking, but I was smoking weed. I hadn't done, Molly or any of that shit in years. My thing was just drinking. So drinking every day. And it just got to a point one day, my wife's like, your breath smells like alcohol. I tell the story all the time, so I fast forward. Decided to go get detox because I tried kicking and the butterflies.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Alcohol's the worst detox.
It is the worst. I had to get up one night, take a shot of Tito's. I was like, oh, shit, bro. You're fucking a highly functional alcoholic. You need to get help. But when my wife said that, the gig was up. And I was like, all right, we're going to detox. I come out in 3 days because I'm an overachiever. I just wanted some allergy medication to help me sleep. I didn't do any fucking Xannies or anything like that because I saw the way people were moving around the day room, and I was just like, I don't like pills, right? So I just like other shit. I end up getting sober. I end up going heavy outpatient, in-person, group, paid. So I'm going 4 times a week to stay sober. And then I find 164 group of AA in a local church about 5-6 minutes from my house. And that's the hardcore big book thumpers.
Oh, yeah.
So by the time I had met you, I think I was already, I was maybe in AA, but, Tony had mentioned something about he's at odds with some of the teachings of AA because of the identity thing. And I remember 6 months, I get my coin, I go to the front of the room, and everybody's dapping me up. Great job, you're halfway there to a year. And I go sit down, and they're like, Sean. I was like, oh, yeah, I stand up. My name's Sean, and I'm an alcoholic. And that was the last time I went to AA. Wow. It just, the box didn't work for me. And I remember telling you something like that, and you were like, I wouldn't be that confident, something to that effect. And, I didn't get it at the time and realize why you said that. And now I see why, because it was such a powerful foundation upon which you built this new life. And again, it's different recipes for different people. But the one thing I have come to realization is that I'll never pick up another drink because I just don't have the power over that particular thing.
Sure.
But the other stuff and, whatever, I always have to disclaim them. Like, that program saved more lives than I could ever hope to.
Sure.
So I don't take any credit from it, but that was my experience. So when you said 164, that brought back the memories. And God always does have a plan because he put me in that group for a couple of reasons. It was to get to the realization that I was powerless over that. And also to put prayer in my life for the first time. When I got on my knees and prayed on a regular basis because of my sponsor. So again, God puts you exactly where you need to be.
So true.
So your mom ends up relapsing, but how does that like kind of affect your own sobriety? So you get out of jail, which is nothing short of a miracle at this point.
For sure.
What was the trigger for them allowing you to kind of get rid of the case? Did you have probation?
Yeah, I mean, they just allowed me to extend my probation. So I was on felony probation, and then I violated probation. And so we flipped the car, and I had possession, but, it was more of like a consumption. So the judge was like, all right, he clearly has a drug and alcohol problem. So with my mom fighting and my new stepdad at the time being involved with recovery for 10 years or so, and his background in treatment and recovery, they were able, and my probation officer, they were able to convince the judge to just give me one more chance.
And you'd be going home to a safer.
Yeah, and that was it. They had a halfway
setting.
house. Yeah, so I went back to them. I live within their halfway house. It's interesting. It's a play with words, I feel, because I understand what you're saying in terms of like the identity of saying like I am this thing.
Right.
For me, I just shift it and say, I am a recovering alcoholic.
Right.
And I think for me, you said it, the most important part, I believe, of a 12-step program is developing a conscious contact with God. Yeah. And so that was like the main piece for me. And then having guardrails, because it's a practice. Anything worth having in life, you have to practice. It's not going to come to you overnight. So for me, it's a good reminder of to just stay in motion with it, and it's just served me well, and I feel like a lot of people do get lost in recovery, and I feel like their whole life is like 12 step, you know, and they don't like expand past that, and I feel like they limit themselves. So I understand.
Yeah, because everything starts with I'm an alcoholic, and it's not a crutch. It's more of a label of a flaw that you have, and if you believe that you're flawed inherently,
Sure.
That may carry over into all your behaviors, right?
Sure,
I think it's like all or nothing for them, and that's what my sponsor and I were at odds with. I was at Date with Destiny. That's where I met you.
Yeah.
2020.
I think it was 2022. Yeah.
2022. And my sponsor and I get into this when Tony had the studio with the shitty food outside the tent. And so that's neither here nor there. But I go out and he's like, sobriety's rented and the rent's due every day. Go catch a meeting. And I'm like, bro, it's fucking Tony Robbins. I spent a lot of money to be here.
Chill, dude.
I'm not going to have a fucking meeting with a bunch of South Florida alcoholics right now. And he couldn't grasp my way of thinking. And that's when we were at odds, because I don't do very well when people challenge me.
Sure.
But if you do challenge me, do it with grace, do it with love and understanding, not like dismissing what I'm trying to do here.
Sure.
So that just showed me that he was in a closed off space where this was the only way. And he said it multiple times. This is the only way that you're going to stay sober. And it just, again, the reason that I've been successful is I'm willing to take huge risks on myself.
Sure.
And this was another one I was willing to take, which was, I don't think this is the only way. It may be the only way for certain people. But for me, as long as I could grasp the concept that when it comes to alcohol, I am no longer a drinker.
Yeah.
Period. I'm not in recovery. I don't identify that way. I'm not a drinker. I literally have alcohol in my house. My favorite shit in the world, Johnny Blue, sitting right there. Somebody gave it to me for a Christmas gift, and I didn't feel the need to remove it or throw it out. And I have absolutely no desire to drink. But I also know that foolish cockiness can backfire rather quickly.
Sure.
Because I keep hearing about how people relapse after 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. I even have a buddy of mine who's going through it right now. He's been sober for over a decade, and he just kind of, it was a miserable attitude. So it was, what do they call it, like a dry drunk?
Yeah, dry drunk,
kind of hold on to the bad behavior, but not the actual substance.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much just made everybody around him miserable, got divorced, son can't stand him, and now he's 60-something, and he's like, looks around, and he's got nothing to live for.
Yeah.
This guy just started injecting heroin and coke. Not
crazy,
heroin,
bro.
like fentanyl and coke, and he's like trying to fucking kill himself.
That's wild.
And I'm just like, picking up the phone or texting him, and he's like, why are you wasting your time on me, kid? And I said, because I love you.
Wow.
And, this is a cry for help, brother. So at the end of the day, I know you don't want to kill yourself. You just need something to live for. So I'm living proof that, even if it's a text or phone call, somebody checking in on you, there's a reason to live. And he's still going through it. And I called my sponsor, ironically enough, from back in the day for a little advice.
That's what's up.
And he goes, just be there for him, man. That's all you can do until he's ready to get sober. So again, things come full circle.
Yeah.
And I keep the lines of communication open. I don't necessarily judge anybody for the way that it works for them.
Right.
And that's not something that everybody has the graceful nature to do, but it's my gift, I think, is to just be able to connect with people from all walks of life. So you get out of prison through this very, very fortunate situation where your mind finds sobriety, goes to bat for you, makes up for all the times that she didn't go to bat for you. There's got to be a ton of guilt and shame that carries into your 20s, but yet and still, you have some kind of entrepreneurial spirit, brother, because what you built today, I want to learn how you went from that to where you are now. Like, what does that process look like? What were the early stages of business for you?
Sure.
Because just staying clean was a fucking mission until your late teenage years.
It's interesting, man. Thank God that I was introduced to the gentleman that took me through the steps, because I needed him during that season. So he sponsored me for the first 7 years of sobriety. And for me, it was really all about recovery those first 7 years. So I went back to high school. I ended up getting they had a course where I could do night class. I had to pass the GED and get had a certain score on the FCAT, and they would give me a normal high school diploma. So I ended up graduating with my class. Different school, but 2003 is when I graduated. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. That was a big achievement for me. And then I went to college for two years. My dad wanted me to go to this place in Orlando, MMI, Marine Mechanic Institute. And so I feel like I was just like always on my own. I never really liked to follow rules and listen to people. So I had a really hard time like working for people because I had a bad attitude. I was very angry, and my dad was abusive, and seeing all the trauma and abuse that I went through, like fighting was like a part of my story. And so I put down the drugs and the alcohol, and I still had a ton of anger, and that was my medicine. Rage and anger allowed me to control people, allowed me to feel safe. And so I was boxing and fighting all the time, and like hanging out with my old high school buddies, and that lasted for like 7 years. And then I actually got arrested in 2006. I got in a huge fight with my girlfriend, and like I destroyed her house. Like I was like, it's kind of crazy. I remember I was like standing in the hallway, and I did like a bunch of like karate kicks and like ninja moves, and like punched holes in the wall. It's funny I'm thinking about it now, but I was like, like punching my elbow. I was just being an idiot. And the neighbor called the cops.
Pent up anger.
Yeah. And so then I got arrested, and that was in 2006. And I was just like, holy shit, like I'm sober and I'm in jail. That was a huge wake up call for me. And then they dropped the charges, thank God. And then I started going to these anger management classes in 2007. And I ended up like becoming an instructor and teaching other kids that would come there from being court ordered and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then my sponsor moved away. My mom relapsed. My dad was diagnosed with cancer, all in the same time. And so all those childhood wounds got re-triggered. And then I was just like, man, fuck this, fuck life. I'm just going to get rich. And I didn't care about anything else. And I started to do commodities. And I had a sense that maybe what I was doing wasn't like the right thing to do. Like it was gray, but I knew that nobody went to jail, and I knew that I would be able to be rich, and this was like my way out. And so from 2007 to 2012, I was doing commodities, like cold calling, doing phone sales, like 15-cent lead cards, banging the phones. And yeah, I became a millionaire through that time. In 2012, I got sued by the Federal Trade Commission for $10 million. And they came in, they sued me, and it was like another like bottom for me. It was devastating because I was like, I kind of like woke up like, oh shit, here we go. And that was actually when I got introduced to like trauma work and experiential therapy and all that. So 2012 got sued, went to this place called Onsite, and that was when I realized that I need to do good in the world. And then that was when I made the decision to open up a rehab business, which was in 2013. And so me and my dad started the business in 2013. So from 2013 till now, we have 7
Your stepdad?
My real dad.
Your real dad?
Yeah, biological pops, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so my dad got sober in our program. My mom was one of the first patients in our program. Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, so I would say sales. Sales is probably like the foundation of how I expanded my entrepreneur abilities.
Right. And at first it was unscrupulous sales.
Yeah.
This the Wolf of Wall Street time around
Pretty
then?
much, yeah.
Long Island was littered with fucking, everybody got the Series 7.
Yeah, I was Series 3.
Series 7. What's the difference?
So it's Series 3 is commodities, Series 7 is stocks.
Got you.
Yeah, we could trade options, so we were able to do leverage. So, and it wasn't, the regulations, the regulatory body, like it wasn't that regulated at that time. And so I got in at the tail end. These guys were crushing it, bro. I'm talking like $1 million weeks, like nuts.
It's interesting you say that, man, because I'm shedding my hustler identity right now. And that's what you were up to that point where you decided to make it about others. And that's what I'm doing right now with the coaching and the transformational speaking and all that, because what I was doing just doesn't line up with who I want to be. Yeah. And I guess that's the realization. Sure. That when you finally do step into alignment, which usually has to be a story of how you're using your pain and how you turned it around to now be an influence for positive and for good for others, sure, the right opportunities will appear. So
it's funny. I feel like a good coach or a good mentor is somebody who has made a lot of mistakes and has failed a lot and was able to continue to persevere and continue to improve. Because that's really all I can tell you is like I've made so many mistakes And I've just figured out how to make less mistakes.
Bro, I'm hearing your story, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but to say it's inspirational is an understatement, because I can only imagine the amount of work that has to have been done for you to even be in this fucking place right now, telling this story, let alone having built this business. So kudos to you. So it's 2013. You're blessed to start this business with your old man.
Yeah.
You get your old man and your mom sober.
Yeah.
What does that process look like? What is that learning process? Where's your first center? And how do you start to grow that?
Yeah, so when I left on site, I remembered being at the halfway house with my dad, my stepdad, and my mom, and I was like a big inspiration. I felt like I could really mentor guys, and they really looked up to me. So that was like my first real identity of like leadership, and it felt really good. And so I was like, all right, what's a business that I could get into that makes a lot of money, that I could help people? And my business partner today worked at this place called Florida House, and I remembered I used to always joke with Adam, and I was like, I'm gonna get that Sharif money one day. And he would always laugh, and he'd be like, whatever, bro. And I was like, no, I'm gonna get that Sharif money one day. And then, yeah, it became true. I joined a company that wasn't doing so well. You know, one of the things that lacked was marketing and sales, and I felt like that was something that I was really good at. And so I came in and would have, in a very short period of time, I realized that this could be an incredibly successful business, helping people, changing lives, repairing broken families, and making really good money at the same time. And so that was my initiative. I wanted to change the world. You know, I wanted to make a difference. And at this point, I was like, all right, I'm going to spend the rest of my life giving back and making a difference, and kind of going through that transition that you're talking about and burning the ships. And it's been one of the most incredible, profound journeys I've ever been on in my entire life, because the level of healing that has to happen to be able to serve at the level that you're talking about, you have to literally like compete like an Olympian, like in your own emotional healing. Like that's the level of input that has to go into it. I'm at 10 years now at coaching and doing personal development, and I'm well over 10,000 hours. You know, like I'm doing events regularly, I'm coaching regularly on a weekly basis. And every single time I step into the identity of like impacting somebody else or serving somebody else, you're healing yourself on that journey. And so that's one of the gifts that this business has given me. And I believe why we've been so successful, because we have such an incredible culture built around love, compassion, healing. And it's just been such a beautiful journey. And I have such an incredible team around me.
Yeah, man. And you even you saved me some money, I think, when we had a phone call not too long ago, because I was going to do something, and you just kind of advised me on how you do things. And what that brought to my attention was, I only want to do business with people that I absolutely respect, trust, and dare I say even love, because the way that you described how you run your business goes above and beyond what most people are willing to do in terms of how you treat your employees, culture, mission, and you live it. I mean,
Sure.
You lead with your heart. And one of the things, I think you told me you were looking at ESOP right now,
Yeah.
which is a structure, for anybody who doesn't know, where the company is sold not to private equity or to some organization who's going to take it over for profit, but it's actually sold to the employees.
Yeah.
And how does that look? How's that going?
So I had my final call last week. We're going to go to market. We'll start looking at deals. They've already had some back of the envelope conversations with a couple banks that are interested in lending the cash. So it's looking really good. It's just really cool, man. And one of the things that you mentioned that I think is important, I believe there's 3 steps of unconditional love. First is like self-acceptance, self-love, and then your ability to love others. And I feel like that's really what has taken my business to the next level, because that is our culture. That is how we show up. And something to the effect of sharing all of my profits with my employees is a representation of that. And I believe that's why they work so hard for me, and they go all in for me, because they see me doing the same thing for them. And so it's really exciting, because we have a plan from now till 2030 where we're going to roll in centers every year. And eventually every single employee will own, up to 40 to 50% of our company. And then at that point, then we'll take it to private equity and we'll do like a full exit. So everybody gets the benefit from that sale.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you guys you started in Florida, but I think you got locations in other states or in Texas.
Yeah. So we have 7 programs in 5 states. We're under contract for 2 more. So we'll be in 6 states, 10 programs within the next 18 months.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is absolutely beautiful. And then, full disclosure, the reason I'm down here shooting podcasts in studio in Boca is because I came out to support and see what Ryan does with his events. Tell us a little bit about your event that you're hosting this week.
Yeah. And so, it all started, going to Tony, right? August 2018, I went to Tony because I wanted to scale my business. That was the idea. And I went there and I realized how I was the chokehold and how I was showing up in life and who I was being wasn't allowing my company to grow. So really I had to get out of my own way was really what had to happen. And a part of what transpired is this identity of creating an X factor for your business. And at this point, I've had, a handful of personal development events that I've experienced. And I remembered at the end of these events, I would bring friends to these events. And on Sunday, they would celebrate them. And I remember they'd always give me shout outs at the end. Like, oh, if it wasn't for Ryan bringing me here, I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't have felt this transformation, wouldn't have felt this shift. And so I was like, whoa, that's my X factor. And so that was when I stepped into this identity that I'm going to be a coach and I'm going to be a mentor. And so then I built this whole training program that I rolled out August 2018. And so from August 2018 until now, I've been coaching and mentoring my company. And we've built it to, I think we'll have 1,000 employees now. And I started doing events with my employees. And that's what started doing the seminars. And then I started to see the evidence of their lives changing and, marriages, coming together and flourishing and their relationship with their kids getting better. And I remember Tony saying, like, you have to have an X factor. And I was like, well, that's my X factor. And so then it kind of just transitioned into me coaching the public because I met Myron Golden July 2023. And we were talking, and he's like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I own a healthcare business. And he's like, wait. And he's like, and you're coaching people for free? And I was like, well, yeah, it's my company. And I was like, I bring people in the public. And he's like, dude, you're doing a disservice. He's like, you scaled a 9-figure business and you're not telling anybody how to do that? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay. He's like, what do you think God would want you to do? And I was like, I guess tell people how to do it. And he's like, exactly. He said, so you're going to start? And I was like, yes. So that was it. I launched my coaching business at that point. Mid-2023, so I've been doing it since then. And I've helped hundreds of entrepreneurs scale their business, step into 7 figures, scale to 8 figures, adopt identities that they need to adopt to grow their business and to create breakthrough and transformation. And so it's been a beautiful experience, man. So yeah, this weekend we have, here in Deerfield Beach, we have a studio where we can fit about 120 people in. And so we're going to have a bunch of high-level people coming in, and we're going to teach them how to create their ideal dream life.
What do you think are the top 3 things that someone who wants to make a shift in their life has to do to get started on the path? And obviously that's a loaded question because it takes way more than 3. But what are the 3 most important or top things that someone can do today to kind of start on their path?
Well, the first thing I think is like really understanding yourself, because most people don't even know what they don't know. And so I think for me, it's you have to put yourself in an environment where you can see examples of what other people are doing. And that's why I think coaching and mentorship is so powerful. And, Tony says like proximity is power. And so I think the first thing is putting yourself in an environment where you have people that have achieved the thing that you want to achieve, because then you will realize that it's possible. And then there'll be a gap between where you are and who you need to become. And that's where the work is. That's when you really start to identify like what your limitations are, because it's all an internal resistance or an internal unmet needs that is not allowing you to step into an empowered decision to take risk or to feel inspired to do something. And then I think the last thing is really just adopting a new practice that refines the new lessons and the new information that you've learned. Because if you don't integrate it and embody it, you'll forget it. You'll lose sight of what you just learned. And so putting yourself in the right room, learning new informations and limitations about yourself, and then applying those new skills in a practice that you implement on a regular basis.
And for anybody who starts to make these shifts in this instant gratification world that we live in more than ever, what is some advice that you could give them around patience? Because I didn't know how long you've been doing this. I just saw you start doing it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were doing this so deeply, specifically for your company, but that was the reps.
Yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
10,000 hours. So by the time you became really publicly known, you already had the chops for it.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of grinding. Yeah, so I mean, it's funny. I say it all the time. Just because it's not going the way that you want it to doesn't mean it's not working. Most people quit before the miracle happens. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned in my life is no matter what, you got to keep going. And I forget who says this, you might remember, but success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And so whoever said that, shout out to you, but that's true, bro. It's like you got to have that passion no matter what. Even if it's not working, you got to just be excited because it is working. Just because you don't have the evidence of it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means that you haven't given it enough time. I mean, dude, I've spoken on thousands of stages, and I feel like just recently I've gotten comfortable, like speaking on big stages. Dude, I used to get terrified walking out on stages. Now, I mean, I still get nervous, but like, it's I've done it so much. Like I can go back to memory and feel the feelings of having success on big stages because I've done it so many times where I'm just like, okay, I know what that's like.
Right.
But without that experience, without those reps, you're never going to know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's like proof of concept. People want the proof before they do the work.
Right.
And then they want the proof immediately after starting to do a little work.
Right.
And the shit just never works like that.
Yeah.
It's like you really got to build the plane in the air, just get started. And then the opportunities for growth will start to present themselves.
Sure.
Granted, you don't give up. And you mentioned something too, when I asked you the 3 things, it was like, make sure you're asking people that have the thing that you want. A guest of mine recently, after the camera stopped rolling, we started talking about relationships. I told him, 17 years of marriage, and I think we've talked about it too. Hardest thing I've ever done is to stay married and stay in the family, because your intuition is to sabotage it. Your intuition is to quit because it's hard and it's also relying on somebody else, so you can always use them as an out. Well, I'm doing the work, but you're not.
Yeah.
And this person was telling me, they were thinking about mending a relationship that they knew was right, but they kind of sabotaged. And yeah, he mentioned it to his boys, and they were all like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "Hold up, any of your boys happily married?" And he paused, and I was like, "I already know the answer," but he's like, "Nah, man, there's nobody that I want to model." And I was like, "Bro, you built a huge business. Do you ever ask anybody for advice that doesn't know what they're talking about in business?"
Right.
And then it kind of clicked.
Yeah.
I was like, so why the fuck are you asking your boys about your relationship? Because subconsciously, they're going to give you the answer that you want, the scared version of you wants, which is keep running, bro. Keep running, keep partying, keep having a good time. They feel like they're going to lose their boy.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you mentioned that, because people always ask the least qualified people in their lives what they should be doing. And I think subconsciously it's a way out.
That's true.
Like, well, let me not ask the guy who's doing it because I'm intimidated or scared.
Yeah.
No, let me ask my mom or my brother or my sister or my cousin or my uncle or my nephew.
Right.
I have no fucking business or qualification to give anybody advice.
Right.
Who are some of the people that you bring in to speak at this event? Because you mentioned some high-level people. What are some of the things that you're teaching? What are some of the tools that you lean on to give to your prospective audience? Yeah,
I mean, I think for me, dude, like I'm very careful on who I bring on stage because, what the message, what's being taught matters to me because it's so close to my identity and so close to me personally. So my mentor, David Schraub, who has been practicing this work for about 40 years, he learned through Adlerian psychology. Rudolf Dreikers, Bill Riedler was like his mentor. And so that's who taught me the last 8 years. And so essentially what we teach is human psychology. 80% of anybody's success in my understanding of human behavior is their own limitations that they have in themselves. And so it always starts in those earlier years when the model of somebody's world is established. Like you said earlier, those formative years, they're developing their belief systems, the way they respond to life. And if you want to be successful in life, you have to be able to respond in a positive way, regardless what's going on around you. And most people don't know how to do that. And so I build an environment where it creates these triggers to come up and these patterns to present themselves. And then we work through those patterns in the room, which are usually driven by some sort of unmet need. One of the things I say is past perceived voids create future perceived values. And so if somebody is standing here today at 30, 40, 50 years old, and they think that they don't have what they want, usually underneath it is an unmet need, or it's some sort of limitation that they have within themselves. Or if somebody has something that they don't want, it usually means that there's some unmet need or some limitation that they have in themselves. And so really just shining light on those blind spots and allowing people to truly integrate what they experienced at that time, because that's essentially what trauma is, right? It's like this open loop, this unresolved issue that was lodged in our nervous system. And then when we get triggered by the external world, that response takes you hostage and you are out of control at that moment. And so until you actually go back and release those emotions and change the meaning around that experience, you're never going to be able to have the level of confidence and security and self-love and compassion to move forward in a graceful way.
That's beautiful. And I had a feeling you were talking to me. I know you weren't, but it was resonating because being in a group like Zenith forces you to level up.
Sure.
You know, I often say, and I think I've told you in private on the phone, it's like being in a room like that, it was easy for me to be like, I don't belong in this room. And
Sure.
that was the gut feeling initially. Like, you built all these great companies and people have done this and they're trying to do this and they're trying to do that. And I'm like, but I'm in the room and I need to understand what my value is. And I just bring it like I see it. But a lot of people there, because I mean, it's Zenith Business Group, right? So you're there to see how you can level up a business or make a connection and, you know, pay for itself or get the value out of it. And for me, it's just ignorantly bliss. I'm just there. I'm like, I just needed to see what was possible in life. Like, I have gifts that other people in that room don't have.
Sure.
They have the financial gifts, but they're missing something else. And you know, I'm missing the financial win. I've done obviously well enough to be there, but not to the level of creating something legacy,
Sure.
lasting business. And that's what's next. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But it's expanded my horizons to like a whole new level. And I've also had the power of adding some value to the room, too. And one of our interactions when we were in Mexico was pretty damn powerful. And I won't share too much about it because there was a lot of private stuff shared there between all of us at the table. But I went around to other, you know, people that were other tables, and I told them, bro, what a fucking breakout session we had. It was this and that. And they were like, I wish I was at your table. Mine was like a pissing contest for what we're going to buy.
We went deep,
yeah. And we were over there, people fucking shedding tears. Everybody's talking about their childhoods, their past, their infidelities. I mean, it was powerful stuff. And I was proud of that.
For sure.
Because I never lead with business. And anybody that ever asked me, you know, how do you interact with such wealthy people? I said, never talk about business. Never talk about business. I have no value to add there.
Right.
But I can add a lot of value when it comes to heart and just being yourself and all that good stuff. So I'm finally finding my stride. And I say all that to say that those boundaries are a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing the self-sabotage even now as I strive for these other things. It's coming to fruition because I haven't identified some of the things. So it's needs not being met.
Yeah.
And I just put my finger on it. So thank you, my friend.
You're welcome,
I appreciate it. That was a realization that I needed to hear.
Usually when that segment is communicated, a lot of people kind of perk up. And
the light bulb goes off. Like, oh, this is why I'm acting like a complete asshole. Or this is why I've made all these strides only to reset every fucking time. And that feels like me. It's like you're running up 3 steps to take 2 back, to run 3 forward, to take 4 back. And you always end up back where you feel comfortable, your emotional home.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like the goal in life is to become our future self, right? And the only way that you're going to be able to fall in love with who you're becoming, you have to fall in love with who you are. And so 95% of what we do is living in the record of the past, and that's unconsciously. And our habitual patterns, our habitual thoughts, our habitual emotions. And so if somebody went through a divorce when they were 35 years old, and they didn't grieve that divorce, they didn't heal that divorce, they didn't change the way they showed up, because they created it. And once they own that, have absolute ownership, they are going to live in that identity until they truly release the feelings, feel the feelings without attaching a meaning to it. And see, that's what happens. Our minds are attaching meaning to every single situation that we've ever been through. And that's what stops us from becoming who we want to become. And so that's the work. That's the core, right? It's like, let's address the cause, and then the symptom just disappears. The symptom is no longer an issue. And I believe that is at the core of how I've been able to scale my business to 9 figures, how I've been able to create the life that I've created. And it's just wild because the level of safety and stability that I feel at this level, I feel like I just started. Like I don't even feel like my business is that big. Like I feel like I sometimes I feel like $1 billion doesn't even seem out of reach.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy because there was a time when like 100 million was like a big deal. Like one day I'll get to 100 million. That's crazy. I remember 10 million was like, oh my God. And now I'm like, $1 billion kind of seems normal because of my emotional capacity. And that's the key, right? It's like being able to build that capacity emotionally to handle all of what life gives you.
Beautifully said. It's basically, the problems never go away. They actually get bigger.
Yeah, way bigger.
But your ability to handle it gets way better. And because you have the reps. And just like the gym, you have emotional reps. Emotional fitness is a huge topic in Tony's world and in any world. Ironically enough, I learned my emotional intelligence in prison, just the same, anger management classes, because I had no idea why we were so quick to jump to anger.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of layers to that onion before you get to anger.
Yeah.
And I learned that in prison. And then, the emotional fitness takes even more deep work because then that's your ability to handle the stress. So you're not automatically triggered by the past trauma that hasn't been resolved. Now, you found, obviously, all kinds of success. If we're going to dive deep, what are some of the things you feel that you're still missing out on, that you're still longing for, some of the things that you're still working on?
It's interesting. I forget who I was talking to, like within the last week or so. I was at a Dr. Joe event and I was with my boy Josh, and I was like, because, Dr. Joe has these meditations where it's like, think about something that you want or something that you want to create or some sort of abundance. And I was like, man, it's so crazy. Like, I don't even know what to ask for. I guess like fall more in love with myself. I'm like, that's the only thing I can go back to because I just, this is like the best time of my life. I feel so complete, man. And like I could say, more money. I could say create more impact, all that stuff. But like, I'm in the journey of all of that. So I'm so blessed and grateful for where I'm at. I guess for me is the ability to maintain this perspective would be something that I would want to hold on to, because I've landed at such a place of gratitude. I've landed at such a place of just peace and just gratitude, man. Just so grateful. I want to just be able to stay here, and the level of work that that I've had to put in to get here is thousands and thousands of hours and thousands of hours of meditating and all these different things that I've been practicing on. Because all the things that I think I want to do are going to happen, it's just a matter of when it's going to show up, and that's the place I operate from today. And obviously there's unknowns, it's like, there's things I don't know that I don't know. And I'd be open to learning more about that stuff. But, I guess when the opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready for it. So I don't know if that was like the answer you're looking for.
I think that certainty comes from the fact that you've overcome so much already that you just trust the process, bro.
Yeah.
Like, that if you dream something up, it's just a matter of time before you get there.
Yeah, so true.
You're willing to put in the work. You already have the wisdom to know that it's not going to happen when you want it to, but when it's meant to. And if it doesn't happen, you're still okay with that because that's just not how it was meant to be. And there's something magical to be said about letting go of that control. And I think that's true wisdom and true mastery is when people get to a space like we just described, which is, I know it's going to happen. I'm going to do my damnedest to make it happen, in the immediate, but I know it's not meant to happen till it's meant to happen. And I'm okay with that.
So true.
And that's when true living starts. And listen, I just want to say thank you for coming
out,
of course, for giving me your time.
Come on, man.
And I can't wait till tomorrow and to the weekend to go enjoy and see what it is that you do up close and personal. Tell our audience more about where they can find you, what you're doing now, and if they want to come out to one of your future events, since
Yeah.
this won't air in time, how they can go about finding out more information, come see you down here in Deerfield.
Yeah, sure. The easiest would be my social media, Ryan Zofay, my name. I'm sure the details will be in the description. We release all of the dates of all events on that platform. And yeah, if you're at a place in life when you feel like you want more and you feel like you're not living up to your fullest potential, I'd love the opportunity to support and help you. One of the greatest gifts that was given to me was by Tony, and he says, you're more powerful than you think you are. And once I started to believe that, my whole life shifted.
Yeah, man. For anybody who's been inspired today, and I don't know how you couldn't have been, make sure you follow Ryan. We're going to have all of his information in the bio description. And as always, just want to thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the episode if you found something useful that somebody can benefit from. As always, thanks for tuning in, and let's get it.